Hey there, my name is Cole Adams, and you are watching the best college basketball podcast out there that covers the entire sport of college basketball, brackets, bubbles, and bid stealers. Now, here are your hosts, Sam Fetterman and Jonathan Lidskin.
Season 6, episode 44 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. I am Sam Fetterman. That is Jonathan Lidskin. Jonathan, how are you doing tonight?
Great. We got a packed show tonight. A lot of conferences to discuss on here.
Yeah, and who better to bring on to discuss the mid-major conferences out west than the guru of schedules and the king of the West Coast in Rocco Miller. Rocco, welcome back to Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers.
Gentlemen, it's great to be on with you on such a momentous eve. It's a little bit of a media day, Christmas Eve up here in Northern California. I'm getting ready to head out to Mountain West Media Day first thing Thursday morning, followed by WCC. So we'll talk about both leagues tonight. Always good to be on with you guys.
And Tom Mosser as well is joining us to talk Mountain West. Tom is the host of his own Mountain West podcast. You got to check that out because I don't know how many people out there cover the Mountain West as a whole as well as Tom does.
Well, they don't, Sam, I guess. And Sam, Jonathan, thanks for having me on. Rocco, good to see you. That's kind of why I just picked it up. There was a vacuum. I think the league deserves the recognition that it gets, and it wasn't getting it. So I decided to start providing it a few years ago. And as I'm sure we'll talk about, this is kind of the last go-round for the Mountain West as we know it. So sad, but we're going to enjoy this 25-26 season.
Yeah, I kind of think the way the national media discusses the Mountain West, it's kind of like the cool stepchild of the power conferences. Like, everyone agrees it's cool. Everyone agrees that, like, it's fun, but nobody actually really gives it the time of day to, like, break it down the way they'll break down the Big Ten, the Big 12. And let's be honest here, we are not going to break this down as much as we broke down the Big 12 and the Big 10. We're going to do our best to talk about the top teams, the teams that have a chance to make the NCAA tournament as deeply as we can, as deep as we would talk about any of the teams in the power leagues. Then we'll get down to the bottom and we'll kind of speed through this. We'll also do some WCC, some Big West, some Big Sky, and some WAC. Let's get started. We're going to go by the KenPom preseason rankings for the Mountain West. And that starts, Jonathan just left, with San Diego State. We actually did a San Diego State team preview earlier this offseason. The Aztecs return two guys that probably could be and probably will be drafted next year. That's very rare in the Mountain West. They have the best coach in the conference. They have the most talented roster in the conference. For me, this is a slam dunk top 25 team. They're near the top 15 for me. I think that they have everything it takes to be not just the best team in the Mountain West, but clearly the top team in the league this year by a decent margin, more so than we've seen over the past few years.
Yeah, I think most people agree with that. We'll see the media. We'll see the preseason poll tomorrow, and I would expect they would get almost all first-place votes. As you mentioned, two hammers at the top in Gwath and Bird. Reese Waters is another former all-conference guy who comes back. He missed the entire season last year with an injury, so he's back. So you bring three all-conference caliber guys back. Nobody does that anymore. And, when you're in a league like this, and as you mentioned, great head coach, great home court advantage. They have some other guys too. I mean, it's a pretty deep roster. So they deserve their spot in the preseason order at number one. And like you said, their fan base, the expectations there among the program is more than just a Mountain West title this year. I think if it's not a Sweet 16 team, they'll be disappointed there in Aztec Nation.
I agree with what you're saying about the depth of this roster. And Jonathan, this is kind of what I want to get into. We talked about this with Austin a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
But this team could legitimately go 9 or 10 deep with like dudes that are really athletic, can play the San Diego State style. They have a bunch of interesting scoring options off the bench. Elsie Harrington, a freshman that was once committed to Harvard.
Yeah.
Terrell Davis comes in. They've got BJ Davis as well back. They've got DeGorville back. Pharaoh Compton's back. A lot of returning players. And I'm really interested to see kind of how this depth shakes out, Jonathan.
Yeah, I really like the depth along with what they did in the offseason in this league, with not just getting back the guys that they did, but they needed a true point guard in Sean Newman, and they brought him in. Like one of the best passers in the entire country, not just in mid-major basketball. And then, yeah, like you mentioned the depth, they have a lot of like breakout candidates off the bench as well as like in the starting unit, I feel like, for this team. Same with BJ Davis, same with Latrell Davis, who comes in. And then you mentioned the name Elsie Harrington. Sam, he was a lot higher rated by recruiting sites before the hard commitment, and then he slowly kind of moved his way down. Maybe recruiters thought that was a misevaluation or something like that. I believe. I don't know if he'll have a high impact on this team because of how deep they can go, but I believe that he will be a good player at San Diego State if he sticks around that program.
Yeah, Rocco, what do you have to add on the Aztecs?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest story in the entire conference exists right here at Montezuma with the Aztecs, and that's Magoon Gwath's knee. I think it's not been covered well enough in the media. I've been trying to put more exposure on it, but he just got cleared, at the end of last week for 5-on-0 drills. And I'm a guy who's gone through major knee problems personally. And he's 7 foot tall. I'm not. And so my concerns are his long-term stability, first of all, if and when he gets back on the court. Second of all, when is he going to be available? There's probably still, just knowing kind of the rehab process, 2 or 3 more major milestones to go. He is doing 5-on-0 drills. Then he'll be able to do 5-on-5 drills. Then eventually he'll be able to go live. And I think the coaching staff has been on record in saying they want him to be able to practice live for a good 2 to 3 weeks before feeling comfortable. And now you kind of reverse engineer that to San Diego State's schedule, and then today's date being October 22nd. And I would just say I'm concerned he won't be available for the Players Era tournament. And that's the exact event that got San Diego State into the NCAAs last year. If they did not beat Houston, if they did not beat Creighton last year, there is absolutely no way they got in. In fact, this was a sinking ship a little bit compared to where the Aztecs expected to be down the stretch, and they somehow held on for one of those last bids, and sadly didn't have a good showing in Dayton. And that kind of leads me to my next concern about this team is despite the fact that they were elite rim protection, obviously Gwath is a huge difference maker when healthy. The 2.6 blocks a game, phenomenal. Their top 10 effective field goal percentage defense. I think all of that's amazing. But the other side of it is all the Aztec programs I'm familiar are teams from the last decade or two that I'm familiar with that is the bread and butter is the rebounding. And last year it was the worst rebounding team by far, finishing 205th on the offensive end and 244th, I believe, on the defensive end. That is nowhere near the mark for Brian Dutcher teams. And you look at the front court, and there's not a whole lot there to address the problem unless they're depending on Gwath, Compton, and Jeremiah Odom does come over from DePaul from 2 years ago, and Majak redshirted the 7-footer. But all my concerns are in Gwath's health, and then also can they fix this rebounding problem? Because if they're allowing second chance points to their opposition or not able to create second chance points for themselves, despite a tremendously talented and deep backcourt that you guys did a tremendous job reviewing. I'm in love with this backcourt and the depth. I don't think it's going to move the needle towards winning when they're in their bigger games. And if they can't win those bigger games, they're not getting in at large bid.
Yeah, I mean, if you'll kind of allow me to zag on that, like I kind of think, yeah, you would like to have him back for Players Era, but if he's not back for Players Era, there's really no need to rush him back for most of December, really. You'd probably want to get him to play that Air Force game before the Arizona game, but you really don't need to rush him back in December if he's not ready for Players Era, because the meat of the season, San Diego State probably going to need to win 14, 15 games in conference play if they don't get those big wins in Players Era.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's just such a huge opportunity for them. And again, it'll be really interesting to see San Diego State try to play with small ball lineups earlier in the season. They played UCLA in a scrimmage recently. It wasn't terrible. They lost by 7, I believe. Got into a big hole early. So they'll try to just work through it. And again, the backcourt and the positions 1 through 3 are tremendously deep and very skilled. Miles Bird, I believe, and he's also dealing with abdominal strain, should be back by the opener. But Reese Waters also coming back from injury. So yeah, there's just a lot of I don't think they would have taken Sean Newman Jr. if they felt all the way great about the health status of both Waters and Bird.
Interesting. I feel kind of Newman complements those guys, gives them a primary ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great ad no matter what, but I do think that could have been part of the equation or maybe up the ante a little bit. But otherwise, like, let's talk about Aztecs ceiling. That's where I'm right there with Tom. Like, this has to be a top 30 team like they're projected and could really, really get on a roll starting at the turn of the calendar in January.
Yeah, definitely think that this team, the ceiling on it is clearly above the pack of the rest of the Mountain West. I think when you return the 2 top draft prospects, both experienced guys, not that have shown it at some level. Bird probably as the preseason player of the year in the league. You're going to get a lot of buzz to have a really high ceiling with as much depth as they have in the coaching staff. I have no problem thinking that they're going to be playing their best basketball heading into March.
Definitely agree with that.
A little bit of a surprising number 2 in Ken Palm's Mountain West rankings is actually Utah State. They're 42nd in Ken Palm. Definitely not that high for me. Even after a really strong first year for Gerard Calhoun, they went 26-8. They were a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament, 15-5 in the league. They started 16-1 overall, 10-0. But they lose a bunch. Ian Martinez is gone. That's a big loss. You lose a whole bunch of starters around Mason Falslev. Bringing Falslev back is huge. Colby King comes in. That's a guy that's going to be able to score for you. How much is he going to give you on the defensive side? We'll have to figure that out. They do bring back a bunch of depth pieces as well. I'm not, and there's a bunch of other transfers that I'm going to let you guys kind of get into.
Well, I'll go here. So you mentioned Falslev, the key. They bring back a couple other returners, guys, Tucker Anderson, Drake Allen, Carson Templin. Those are like program guys. They're not going to be your all-conference players, but they're going to be complementary guys that really help out. Some of their transfers are big. Big in terms of what they can provide. Gary Clark. There's a few others. You mentioned King, and there's a couple others. So they have the potential to be almost as deep as a San Diego State roster. For me, here's what the key is for Utah State. You mentioned how hot a start they got off to last year. They, too, kind of like San Diego State, tapered off at the end of the season. And the reason for it was Calhoun came in. He's never been, let's be honest, he's never been known as a defensive guru, right? He's an offensive-minded coach. That his squads put up great offensive numbers, and defense has not been a strength of his programs. So last year, he came out early on with this gimmick like matchup zone defense, and it really kind of threw teams for a loop, and most teams had no clue what to do, or it took them a while to figure it out. And ironically, the one coach who did figure it out was Eric Olin, because UCSD came and beat them in Logan, who he'll now play against twice this year. But point being, by the end of the season, teams have started to figure it out, and that kind of coincided with Utah State's drop. So I don't know what exactly he has in his bag of tricks here, but I trust Calhoun a little bit to tweak something or change something so that he's not just going to trot out the same defense that kind of got stale in February and March, and that's kind of going to determine how close and competitive with San Diego State Utah State is, if they're in the at-large hunt, or if they're not quite where kind of where you have them in not in the 40s or maybe a little bit lower.
Yeah, I'm with you on kind of the defense. I don't think the defensive bones of this team are particularly excellent. I didn't think the defensive bones of last year's team were particularly excellent either. They obviously, I liked having Aubin Gederetzi as kind of an option as a 5. Maybe Zach Keller can do something. Transfer over from Utah. Templin's obviously back. Maybe Gary Clark gives you something in the post as well. But I kind of think this team, as you mentioned, it's going to be about the offense. We know King's going to score. Clark can put up points. Falslev is as good of a player as there is in this conference. And I'm kind of buying a Tucker Anderson. I kind of bought Tucker Anderson bounce back a little bit. I think he's a talented shooter. Didn't really have the best season last year. But I do think MJ Collins, Jonathan, is kind of maybe the biggest swing piece on the roster.
Yeah, he's coming down a level, which I think is good for him. I was high on him as a breakout guy at Virginia Tech a couple years ago, and that, never really happened. But I think coming down, he could be an interesting piece as like a second, third scoring option here. Sam, you talk about Miles Bird as the best player in this league. Mason Falsov's probably the second best player in this league.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a phenomenal player, high major talent that stuck around at Utah State. And I'm not like terribly surprised that they're number 2 just because of the continuity, and I feel like what you're getting offensively. Defense is the key. They finished 150th last year in defensive efficiency by Ken Pom. At the end of the year, they got hammered multiple times. Once by Boise, twice by Colorado State, and then of course in the NCAA tournament by UCLA. So I think that if the defense takes a step up, it's the transfers that come in. Calhoun is a good coach. I trust him to figure it out. I don't know if they'll definitively be an NCAA tournament team, but I believe they'll be in the mix.
Yeah, I definitely think they can be in the mix. Rocco, anything?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is a hot take, I guess, based on what the three of you said, but I've got Utah State winning the Mountain West this year in the regular season. And
Wow.
A lot of it has to do with the San Diego State concerns I have. Obviously, if that all improves, which again, it's a day-to-day deal down there, then that completely changes. But I do think out of the rest of the pool of teams, this Utah State team, it's very easy to see everybody's role within Calhoun's system. And you guys are, Tom, you were spot on about the matchup zone getting figured out like by mid-February, I believe. That was well documented across the league. And so they are going to have additional tricks up their sleeve to get through the full 5 months. Eric Hout helped Jared Calhoun at Youngstown State. Well, actually, he went up against Jared Calhoun
at Northern Kentucky. Yeah,
at Northern Kentucky. And Northern Kentucky had the best defense in that league.
That's the zone.
And it's the zone. But so they're going to have to figure out different variations if they want to continue to go there. But I'm a big Gary Clark guy as well. I watch a lot of Southland Conference basketball. I'm not afraid to admit that.
Monday nights.
That's right. And he's probably, out of any non-McNeese player, my favorite player in the league. And I just think he fits like a glove for Utah State's gap that they needed to fill there at the 5. He's a tremendous rebounder. The rebounding metrics should improve. And I just think Utah State, as you guys know, very, very difficult place to win for a road team. That's what made that UC San Diego win so special last year. And then I also think this team, good enough to at least go get some road wins, set themselves up with favorable neutral court wins, potentially by playing VCU early, who's got a brand new staff right on the first Friday of the year down in Frisco, Texas.
That'll be a great game on Friday.
One of the sicko location games of the year. Shout out Hurley Mania.
That's a shout out to our guy TJ for the Texas Legends AAU team who made that possible. Anyway, I just think they optimized everything they could for this season, both roster and schedule. Is it enough? That's up to us to find out later. But I do like that they have the defined roles, and they've really kind of tried to figure out this matchup zone thing that went stale last year.
Yeah, I see where you're optimistic, and I think I have similar optimism. I just don't think I can go as far as you can.
No problem.
Number 3 on KenPom and number 2 for most people, from what I've seen so far, is Boise State. 53rd in KenPom. I have them number 2 in the 40s. Jonathan, I think you have them number 2 as well.
Yeah.
This kind of starts with Dylan Andrews coming in from UCLA. He was buried under a bunch of really talented guards last year. By the end of the season, it kind of became clear that it made sense for UCLA and Andrews to kind of go in different directions. I think this is an awesome landing spot. Could be one of the best point guards in the conference, maybe the best point guard in the conference. I think he can really score. I think he'll bring that a level of talent to this team that they really need. And I love the size that this team has on the wing as well. RJ Keene, a great two-way guy. Andrew Meadow can shoot it. Gavin Buchanan, really talented kind of do-it-all guy that kind of needed to settle in a little bit. But we've seen what he can look like at his best. I think that Jonathan is really big on Buchanan, and I'll kind of let him talk about that.
Yeah, I think he's probably a better scorer and shooter than what he showed last year. Like, Sam, we talked numerous times on this pod about how we didn't think they were playing enough. And Boise State didn't have quite the season that I thought they were going to last year, but they actually played really well down the stretch. And I know that you lose some key pieces. You lose Dagenhart, you lose Stanley, you lose Cardenas. I think Andrews is going to give you a different look at point. Like, he's not this, like, super elite playmaking type that Cardenas was, but he'll get after you defensively, he'll pressure the ball, he'll force turnovers, and he's not a bad offensive player alongside that. The rest of this roster, I think the key thing for this team right off the bat is going to be figuring out who your lead scorer is, who your best player is. Is it Buchanan? Is it Andrew Meadow, who I'm a big fan of? They're not super deep, but I think they have some options off the bench that can work, especially if some of those younger guys pop. I still like this team. I still believe in Leon Rice. I think they'll be very, very competitive once again.
Yeah, and I also want to say Drew Fielder had a solid performance in their game against Idaho, from what I recall. Kind of a big that can move, coming from Georgetown.
Yeah.
Was definitely not the right physical fit for the Big East. Probably a better physical fit here. And they got Don Perlman, the former Lehigh big man, who can give them a little bit more of a ground and pound approach if they want that.
Fielder does play with a lot of energy, but like you said, he just wasn't physically strong enough to play important minutes in the Big East.
Yeah, especially for a team whose identity was that physicality that Georgetown brought last year with Sorber. Tom or Rocco, anything to add on Boise?
Rocco, you want to go, and then I'll go last?
Yeah, no problem. It was interesting on that exhibition game. Fielder came off the bench to have the 24. And I don't know if that matters or not. Typically, you would at least want to, for the dry run, put your regular starters in there. So we'll see if that changes over time. It looked like a big outburst off the bench, but interesting piece. I'm a big Javon Buchanan guy. Looking forward to talking to him tomorrow in person. Also join Jonathan in the love for Andrew Meadow. I think you can build around those two for sure. And Andrews, Dylan Andrews did not play in that scrimmage, so wondering kind of what his status is going forward. But assuming he's fine and the outlook is what the outlook is, this team projects really kind of right on the bubble once again. Kind of a notorious bubble team every year, almost like Arizona State has been. And I do think with Leon's coaching and the way they adjust from game to game, we've seen this team in the past have really kind of horrible non-conference losses. And then by the time we get to league play, they really turn it on. He's got an unbelievable January record. If you ever want to do a fun side project, just look up Leon Rice's January record. And that really puts them in position to make a run and a move towards March, no matter what they do to themselves in non-league. So I think we're kind of going back at it again with Boise. And again, if like the SDSU thing health-wise is a lingering issue throughout the year, why not the Broncos as well to be in that mix to have a chance at the championship for the regular season?
So now it's my turn, Rocco, to be to have the hot take here. I'm gonna go the opposite way. I don't like everything. Every prediction you see from every media group or every talking head has San Diego State 1, Utah State and Boise State flip 2-3 somewhere. And I'm going to go against the grain here. And I love Leon. I respect what the job he's done there. They have some nice pieces. I'm going to peg them in the 4 or 5 range. My take on it is this. I like Buchanan. We all like Buchanan. Meadow, you're going to ask now to take an increased step up in production with the departure of Degenhart. And that's assuming, let's just say that Andrews, I know Jonathan said he's not the same type of player as Cardenas, but if he gives the same type of production as Cardenas, he might, but he might not. Leon brought in a point guard not quite as talented, but a couple years ago, Roddy Anderson, and it was a complete bust 2 years ago for Boise. So there's no guarantee as talented as Andrews is that it works. And if he doesn't match the production that Cardenas gave, you don't have Degenhart back. I expect Buchanan to be a little more, but Degenhart was such a leader, man. I watched every one of their games. He was the definition of a program guy and a leader, and just I don't know who that is now. You're going to ask that from guys like Meadow, and maybe he will be, and maybe Leon's consistency will keep them second or third and in the bubble discussion. I don't think they're very deep. I do like Fielder. He looked good in the exhibition game. But I don't, Andrews is fine. It was just precautionary. They just kept him out because it was an exhibition. But I just don't know that they have. If one of their guys, like here's another guy we didn't even really talk about, but Peanut Carmichael, people expected a lot out of him. He didn't start the scrimmage either, and he only played like 9 minutes, so maybe 12 minutes at most. So, he's another guy that I was expecting. So. I mean, look, there's talent there. I trust Leon, but I got to be different somewhere. And I'm just putting my foot in the ground there and being a little bit different here on Boise.
Yeah, kind of seems like I'm the high man on Dylan Andrews, and I know that the UCLA team that he was really productive for was not very good, but I don't think it was because Andrews wasn't good. I think that they kind of had just a lot of warts as a whole, and I think that. This level is a level where Andrews is. I just think like capable high major point guard in the Mountain West. Give him a little more freedom to kind of play his way, and I think that it's really going to work out at a high level. I think we're looking at one of the top guys in this league.
I don't mind putting Boise State lower, just because I think that the teams that we're probably going to get to here at 4 and 5 are maybe a little bit underrated, honestly, and are probably closer to some of these top teams than maybe they're being perceived right now.
So number 4 in Ken Palm's rankings at 79 is Colorado State, with Ali Farouk-Manesh, the new coach. Josh Pasquarelli comes in from Marist, Jevin Muniz from FGCU, basically a whole new backcourt, pretty much a whole new team from the group that was just seconds away from the Sweet 16 last year. I think this is definitely more of a build year for this program. Probably not going to be in the at-large conversation the way they have been over the past few years. Would not be totally surprised if they kind of sneak up late and start playing some really good ball. But 4 of their 5 projected starters have another year of eligibility after this. The bench is full of younger guys. I think that this is kind of a year where it's kind of a build, reset, new coach, get his feet under him because he's still really young, and then kind of really hit the brake, really hit the ground running with an at-large caliber team next year.
All right, let me go. I'll go quick. I'll be quick with CSU. I love the hire. I think most college hoops people really respect Ali. He's basically going to be an extension of the Medved system. He'll put his own tweaks on it, but everybody loves the hire, and I think for good reason. I think what you said, Sam, makes a lot of sense. Sure, they're going to try and win as many games as possible to get into the at-large discussion. But, I mean, I think, right now I would slot them probably in an NIT spot, and then hopefully next year they retain a lot of pieces and they're a little bit higher in their new conference in the Pac whatever, and they can get into the at-large discussion. But, look, nobody had CSU pegged for the NCAA tournament last year either after they lost Isaiah Stevens. And Nate Clifford came out of nowhere, built himself up into an NBA prospect, and that was through player development from Nico and Ali. And so let's see what they can do. They bring back Bemba inside, the big man, Rashawn Bemba. They got a bunch of transfers, some with some more upside. You mentioned a couple, but there's also Kerry Booth, Calvin Booth's son, Rex Steiner, the son of pro wrestler Scott Steiner. So they got some interesting guys on the roster. I actually, ironically, coached Devin Munez in high school for a year. So I got a little bit of a connection there back in Pennsylvania, like maybe 8 years ago, crazy enough as that sounds. But, so they're not going to be an easy out. They play a difficult offensive style, make teams defend you. And let's see what Ali has, once he moves over to that head chair. I wouldn't count them out. They're going to be a pain to play against. I think they're going to have a shot every time they hit the floor. And, we'll see what they can do long term.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on most of that. You mentioned player development. That's something that this staff, going back to Nico's time, has been really good with, and that's kind of why I'm really looking into next year as, all right, if they can hold on to Pasquarelli and Kia Dulas and Butler, Rex Steiner, some of those guys, what could they look like for their senior year? Because I think kind of they are maybe a step below talent-wise what the other teams we've talked about are.
Sure.
At the moment. I love Pasquarelli. I loved him at Marist. He's not a great on-ball guy. I don't think Rex Steiner has shown a ton so far. So maybe they're going to have to play Muniz on the ball. I know he is capable of doing that, but I'm not sure exactly how good that ends up being. And kind of Kia Dulis as kind of like a stretch-ish four-man and can shoot it a little. Definitely has some skill to his game. Interested to see kind of how his game ports over from VMI. But there's definitely the kind of the upside swing you mentioned with Booth. Jonathan, are you still in on Kerry Booth?
Yeah. I think he's got the physical size and physical skill set to work in this league. I was high on him at Notre Dame. I was high on him at Illinois. I think if he pops, that's how this team ends up probably being better than maybe we expect.
Absolutely. Rocco?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to where you guys are on this team. I think we don't know what we don't know. I like the fact that Ali will more than likely adopt the Nico system, which is going to create a lot of open looks. Probably get a playmaker. I think Pasquarelli's a guy I loved at Marist right there. Sam, in your backyard, Poughkeepsie, New York. I think he can definitely translate to the Mountain West level. The VMI transfer, a little less sold on because, let's face it, like athletically, he's a great role player at the SoCon level for a VMI team. So he'll do little things like set screens and rebound and take charges potentially. I don't know if charges still exist, but I don't think he can maybe hang with the Mountain West athletes to be at the top of the league. But I don't want to discount this team at all. The program's on the rise. Last year's season was special, and I do think Ali will continue to carry that forward. Whether it's an NIT or not, I just think you're right about, like, as the year goes on, they're not going to be one of those teams that fades away. They're going to be a pain in the butt to play against.
The number 5 team in the Mountain West Ken Palm rankings is actually Grand Canyon, the new team in the Mountain West, the new kids on the block. They weren't supposed to join the Mountain West until a year from now, but they basically left the WAC. The WCC, where they were originally going to go, when they announced they were leaving the WAC, didn't want them because they said they were going to the Mountain West. And the Mountain West kind of threw them a lifeline at the end and saved them from having to play an independent schedule, which would have been a real disaster for a program that's been a fixture in the NCAA tournament over the last few years. But I love its backcourt. I love Brian Moore Jr., one of my favorite players that I watched kind of on the East Coast last year. Was clearly one of the 2 best players in the MEAC. Was him and Blake Harper. Just they were so much better than everyone else. I think Moore kind of just got where he wanted, did his stuff. I think he'll be a stud grad guy. He's been around. Mykhiah Williams, he's been up and down. I think if he's up, that can be another really, really high-end guy for GCU. We saw in his freshman year at UT Arlington him and being an 11.3 assist guy, shooting 45% from three. Maybe they don't need that, but maybe they get something in the mid to high 30s from him from three, and back in the 40s, a field goal percentage, kind of settling into that system. I think that would be huge. They've got Dusty Stromer coming in from Gonzaga. I think this is a good fit for him. Nana Usu and Nane coming from Brown, missed all of last season with a shoulder injury. Definitely an athletic guy. Was kind of more back to basket in the Ivy League. Probably going to ask him to stretch a little more and kind of be a little bit more of a perimeter, all-round player this year, given that he's not going to be just bigger than everybody else like he was for the most part in the Ivy League. But I think GCU, there's certainly some upside with this team. Can definitely see them being probably not at large good, especially kind of coming into a new league. But I think there's some upside here. Good team.
All right, let me go. I'll go.
Okay.
So I actually, maybe I'm getting ahead of my skis here. I picked them third in the conference.
Okay.
So maybe I am underestimating the nightly grind in January and February that they certainly did not have last year in the WAC. My point and my view on it is they didn't, like in the spring here, Bryce Drew, he didn't put this roster together to compete against the WAC, right? He didn't know what conference they were going to be in, but I don't think he cared. They've been in the tournament, I think 3 of the last 4 years, maybe even 4 of the last 5. He did not recruit this roster to play against the WAC. He recruited it to be as good of a roster as he could get to compete against anybody, like as good a program as they could be. And so you mentioned some of the individuals. I hear good things about, Wuse Anane. Demerol, the 7-footer from Turkey, is pretty intriguing. You mentioned Brian Moore. There's Jaden Henley has already proved that UNLV last year that he could play in the Mountain West. Stromer's a Gonzaga recruit. So right there, that's a pretty darn good starting 5. You can trust the coach. You can trust their home court environment almost as good as some of the others in the Mountain West, right? And so if
they'll debate you on the almost part.
Okay. And the rest of the Mountain West, you'll get arguments from the Pitt and Viejas there, but I mean the spectrum. But the fact is that they have a great environment down there, and if they can handle the grind nightly, twice a week, the altitude, the travel in January and February, this is a team that is going to cause problems for the rest of the Mountain West. I'm pretty high on them. We'll see.
Yeah. I think,
Jonathan, go.
I think that the key point there is like they can win a lot of home games. Like winning on the road is really hard in this league, just because. And Rocco, I know you've talked about this before on this show. The altitude changes between all the teams in this league. I think Grand Canyon probably has a similar advantage. The great home atmosphere, the altitude changes with them. Overall, I can't say the roster is better than it was a year ago. But obviously, last year they had some good players, or players that we expected to be good, that really didn't live up to expectation, and they still ended up being fine. Like, I don't think they won the WAC, but they were higher than Utah Valley and Ken Palm. It was just like the way the cards were dealt. I think this is a competitive roster. Like you said, Sam, I can't really see them being an at-large caliber team, but I see some pieces here that will absolutely work in the Mountain West.
Yeah, I just think that two players that I think were really undervalued by kind of national media when talking about GCU the last couple of years, Colin Moore and Luke War. Those two guys were just all over the place defensively. I don't really think that they have that type of wing this year. It's not the same. Like Owusu Anane, I'm not sure how good he's going to be guarding the perimeter. Henley, sure, he's definitely athletic, but Stromer isn't giving you what Moore and War were, or even what Jacoby Coles was giving you. I think defensively on the wing and in the backcourt, this is definitely, and obviously what TGF gave you kind of everywhere on the floor defensively and offensively, even though he struggled to shoot it last year. GCU was the number 71 defense in the country last year. They were number 32 in turnover rate. I think they'll be pretty far down from where that was last year. I think that was a team the last 2 years that had a lot of guys that were really, really good at forcing turnovers, really, really good at kind of getting in you, and really, really good on help side, jumping passing lanes. I don't think that this roster kind of has that same element. It could be a little more like a couple of years ago where they were really good offensively and struggled to force turnovers defensively in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are I like a lot of the pieces. It's very clear that once the spring hit and there was a chance, just any percentage, whatever it was, that Grand Canyon could become a Mountain West member a year early, the plan within the staff and the program was to build a Mountain West roster and level up. And they clearly did that, I think, compared to what they were able to do in the WAC. Clearly, it's not only a program on the rise, but the money's always on the rise at Grand Canyon as well. So I'm sure the player pool of dollars escalated as well with that possibility. And politically, what you'll hear across the Mountain West, especially the teams going to the Pac-12, is that they hate it. This is BS, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is everybody across the league that has any interest in being in that large bid just got another quad one game on their schedule by going to Grand Canyon. And so this is probably the best thing that could have happened to the Mountain West Conference this particular season.
They're probably not winning many games there.
In what we call the final rodeo. And I think the reason I like a lot of the additions, now, again, they all got to get healthy or, maybe they already are. Brian Moore Jr. is probably my favorite Norfolk State player in the last decade in the entire Coach Jones era. Just an unbelievable dynamic dunker, athlete, rebounder. I think his athleticism translates to this game. He's the kind of kid who could potentially be a two-way player in the NBA in a year or two. It's Dusty Schromer. Yeah, he had his moments at Gonzaga where he got red hot. Obviously, couldn't crack the late season rotations, and it's probably a good move to come to another, surging program in GCU. But we all know he's been around a lot of winning, much like Brian Moore has at Norfolk State. And that leads me to my next point with Owusu Anane. The last time he stepped on the court, it was a 1-point heartbreaker to Yale in the Ivy Championship game that could have put Brown University into the NCAA tournament. If you don't think that kid's a winner and a competitor, then you haven't seen him play, or you haven't interviewed him. And I just love, and I think they could carry a guy like Henley who, played in Kevin Kruger's UNLV era a lot, and they got used to mediocrity like down the stretch. That won't be acceptable this year at Grand Canyon. And I look at Caleb Smith, another big that played for Mike Magpie, won a lot of games at UC Riverside. I know Wilhelm Bradenbach very well as a Washington guy myself. And again, he's not the most athletic guy, probably shouldn't have been playing in the Big Ten, but he fights his ass off and he works for every inch. He'll be a really good Mountain West player. And so you look at all these pieces, plus the Micaiah Williams coming back, the FA 7-1 freshman from Turkey. The list goes on. This team has a real danger factor to it.
Yeah, want to move a little quicker here through the rest of the Mountain West. Nevada at 92. Jonathan, what do you like about the Wolfpack, or what do you not like?
That might be a better way to put it, Sam. I'm not a huge believer in this team, to be perfectly honest. I think they lack the talent that some of the other teams have in this league, at least at the top end, and I don't think their depth is anything to write home about either, to be honest. I do think that the backcourt is intriguing with Rollison and Comer. Comer was it was like a solid passer in the Missouri Valley, and then Chuck Bailey off the bench was intrigued by him as a freshman at Evansville. But I think that this team is probably a notch below at least the rest of the teams that we've talked so far. And I think, Tom, you might share similar thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. Like Sam said, we'll move quicker through these guys. Here's the one thing, if you're a Nevada backer, that you can kind of hang your hat on. Alford does his best work when there's not as much expected of his teams, right? It's happened several times, and that's where they are right now. They're going to be picked 8th tomorrow. I can almost guarantee they're going to be 7th or 8th when the poll comes out. I'm not a huge fan of the roster. I watched them the other night. They beat Utah. Now, I know it's an exhibition, but I watched it. They look decent. I mean, is Utah a good Big 12 team? No, but it's still a Big 12 team, and Nevada beat them. Their defensive intensity looked really good. They weren't a together cohesive unit last year. They look a little better in that regard right now. Now, of course, it's early. That could change. I like the big man inside Armo trading that they brought in from a Big West school out there. I can't remember which one, but Riverside. So I like Armo trading. The wings and the guards are just kind of meh for me. It's a tough top 4 or 5 to break into if you're offered, and so they're probably destined for a mid-pack finish.
Yeah, I want to talk about New Mexico, who is 97th in KenPom. I think they're going to finish a lot higher than that. I think with Eric Olin, you're looking at a coach who's been leading an ascending, UC San Diego program. Brings over Chris Howell from there, guy who's won. I think Dayton Albury, kind of just eager to break out in this league. It didn't really happen last year at Utah State, even though he was solid. I think he's going to be a stud for New Mexico, one of the better point guards in this league. And then Antonio Chol is kind of the real swing piece. Was not much at Rutgers, goes to JUCO, has a ridiculous season. He was all over the place, 3-level scoring, defense. If we see that version of him, then I would really watch out for New Mexico.
I'm with you, Sam. I like New Mexico, obviously, for the humans that are in that room now. The staff with Eric Olin, Sam Stapleton, Tom Tankelwitz, rising star, is their offensive coordinator, comes also from UC San Diego, and Mike Roberts and both Michael Wilder. Those two guys, the two Mikes, have very successful pedigrees in running defenses. Of course, Mr. Roberts did it for years with Wes Miller at UNC Greensboro. They had a team that flirted with the bubble one year because of prowess on the defensive side. And then Michael Wilder has been part of UC Irvine basketball for 15 years. And that's an unbelievable land to get him to leave there and come to New Mexico. So I'm a huge fan of the staff. You talked about Mikey Howell, and, of course, his little brother is the best defender on this roster, Chris Howell. And he's long, intelligent. He's going to help be a leader after all the success last year. He had 76 steals last year. These guys are going to be a pain to play against because they generate so many turnovers defensively, and they never turn it over offensively. They broke all types of records last year in turnover margin. They're both top 5 on both sides of the ball and never turning it over and creating turnovers defensively. You can't expect that those types of marks again with all the new pieces, but what I do think is that's going to mold like clay. They're going to make great decisions. They're going to create great looks when they do shoot the ball. And the spacing, the ball movement without the ball, it's poetry in motion. And, there's a lot of potential heroes on the roster. I won't belabor that. But one guy I've got my eye on is Luke Haupt from Point Loma, a Final Four team in Division II. They're in love with this kid. Can't wait to talk to Eric about him tomorrow.
Jonathan, want to talk to you about UNLV. A lot of talent on this team. Josh Pastner's first year. What is a reasonable expectation?
I think a reasonable expectation is probably somewhere in the middle of the league, maybe a little bit towards the bottom. But I could see this being a surprise team in the league. I know that we can say what we want about the Pastner hire. He's had good teams before. And I think for Mountain West standards, he can have a good team here. They're talented. I really like this backcourt as long as Miles Chase healthy. I think this really could be a team that pops. And I think the key with Pastner is some of his early teams at his stops have been good before he's kind of faded down the stretch in whatever tenure it has been. I could see this going a similar way.
Tom, I want to hear your thoughts on Wyoming.
Well, look, Sundance is well respected. It's a very tough job. He loves it there. I don't know that there's many places he would leave for, honestly. He's a Wyoming guy all the way through. It's just a tough job. There's just not enough NIL. They They have a decent, from what I know, Leland Walker from FAU, I believe, is going to be their go-to guy. They find these under-recruited guys from JUCO or NAIA ranks they've done it the last few years and turned them into guys like Agbum who go and play at Baylor or wherever he is, right? And other guys that have done it before. So that's what they're going to have to do. They faded at the end of last year. They played very tough early on. That it's just such a difficult top half to break into. I mean, I like Sundance. I think it's just like you have to wait until next year when the league kind of thins out a little bit before they can make their mark. I just don't see any way that they can sneak in the top half, unfortunately.
Yeah. San Jose State, I love the addition of Colby Garland. I thought he was going to go a lot higher than he did last year from out of Drake. He went to Longwood. Thought he was really solid at Longwood. I think he'll be a really good point guard. I like Yafet Moody in this front court. I think the upside of this team is going to come from, you look at Adrian Myers coming in from Mississippi State, a bunch of other guys as well. Jermaine Washington maybe could have a little bit of a breakout possibly. We'll see if they can get a breakout from one of their younger guys. That they kind of need one. Rocco, if you want to talk a little bit about Fresno.
Oh man, thanks for that.
Cycle, we're circling around.
No, I love it. Jake Heidbreder, 31 points in the exhibition win over Cal Poly. Probably the most exciting thing that's happened to Fresno State basketball in 3 years, and it was an exhibition game, so we'll celebrate for today. But I think I've seen some clips of practices. There's so many young guys. Wahlberg's got himself 9 or 10 freshmen on the roster. Yeah, good luck with that. Cameron Foss does come over from Kansas City. Should be, he's got experience. He's a senior, played 28 minutes at the Summit League, so that should at least be a couple pieces they can lean on. Zayon Collins, of course, has played quite a bit in the Fresno program, but this is just a brutal job right now. And another team kind of like Wyoming at this stage where they need an influx of cash, especially since they're going to the Pac-12 next year, which would be an elite basketball league. It's basically going to be the Big East of the West. I don't know how Fresno needs a complete remodel as a program heading into next year.
Air Force, anyone have anything to say?
God
Great
bless.
It's an impossible job.
God bless our troops.
Great atmosphere at Air Force games. On Friday nights, CBS Sports Network, they usually give somebody a real scare in that building.
Yeah, they always seem to beat New Mexico.
Yeah, they almost beat San Diego State last year. Yeah.
They've owned UNLV too for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Quick run through it. Player of the year. For me, I'm going to go Miles Bird.
I'll go false love. I'll be different. I'll say false love.
Okay. Jonathan?
I'll go Miles Bird as well.
Rocco?
I got bad news for Tom. Mason false love as well.
Okay. Defensive player of the year. Jonathan?
Magoon Guaf.
Yeah. Guaf. If Guaf isn't healthy,
Yeah.
it's probably Bird in that case. But I do really want to shout out Chris Howell.
Yes, that's a great choice.
Rocco?
Yes, Chris Howell, if Guath is out for too long. Otherwise, it's a slam dunk for Guath.
Yeah, Guath will be the winner as long as he plays, most of the games in conference play. Yeah.
Anyone want to throw a dart for freshman of the year?
I do.
Go.
Naz Meyer at Wyoming.
Okay.
Wow.
We talked about him on the freshman preview with Armand. Sam, I think he's got some real skill. Comes from the NEPSAC, so played against high quality competition in high school. I think if on a Wyoming team that's going to be towards the bottom of the league, like younger guy, I think he can help them.
Yeah, I could see it being him. I could see it being DeMerrill from Grand Canyon. I just know he'll play. I think this is a pretty old league. It's a much older league.
Always is. Yeah.
All right. Tom, thank you so much for coming on and talking Mountain West with us. definitely check him out at Coach Mosser on Twitter. Listen to his podcast. We've got to talk about some other leagues now.
Absolutely. My pleasure, guys. Thanks. Keep up the good work. Rocco, talk to you soon. Rocco's
Yes.
going to join me on the pod next week. So I'll watch the rest of your show later. You guys have a good night. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, so from the Mountain West to the WCC, we've talked a lot this offseason. We've done our Gonzaga preview. We've done our St. Mary's preview. So I don't really want to talk a ton about those teams because we do talk about them a lot, but we do have to talk about them. And for me, the storyline for Gonzaga, obviously aside from tying Grant Foster not getting a waiver, is kind of – yeah, obviously you get Ike back and you have Huff in the front court. I'm really interested in this backcourt with Braden Smith and Mario Saint-Superi. Smith redshirted there last year. Saint-Superi, young guy, comes in from Spain, gets a lot of hype. What Rocco? What do you think of that duo?
I like it. I like it a lot. They're splitting time right now, I believe. So letting the competition play out. I love doing that. If you're a staff, giving those guys equal opportunity, see who really wants the job. And maybe if it works, they can just keep it going, for 4 or 5 months and all the way through. But typically at Gonzaga, as you know, it's going to be weird not having a Nemhard there. It's been a while. So that'll take some adjusting, I think, but for the fans to watch. But I do think with Huff and Ike in the middle, I mean, the foundation is so solid with this team, gives them a very high floor. And even if Grant Foster can't get on the court anytime soon or at all, Steele Venters and Davis Fogel look like excellent pieces that can both, hybrid between the 2 through 4 positions. And thank God on Venters, man. I've been waiting for that guy for years. And I just think Jalen Worley is a very exciting athlete as well. So
yeah, I think Gonzaga can have some really exciting defensive lineups.
Right, which is not their
with Innocenti, Worley. Yeah. If they get Grant Foster, him, and Ismail Diane, obviously that would not be a good offensive lineup whatsoever. Yeah. But I think it's like a look that we're not used to seeing from Gonzaga. They were. I didn't think they were particularly deep last year. I know they had some depth. I think we'll see a lot more of Diane this year probably. Had some big performances towards the end of the year. Innocenti, I think, is kind of ready to kind of jump into another role. We saw him play more towards the end of the season. I don't think some of the bench swings, Ajayi just didn't work out there for them last year. Stromer was on and off. I like getting Venters back a lot. Adam Miller is a little bit of a confusing one for me, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's a 3-point percentage play right there. Just get him open looks and have him defend, and I think you can make it work there. But if Mark Few can't get it to work, he won't play. So
Jonathan.
Yeah, I think that the attention that Ike draws inside is going to work better for this roster than it maybe did a year ago. I know that they ended up finishing really high in KenPom last year, but I didn't honestly think that they were the 8th best team in the country, and I don't think many people did. I think that Davis Fogel is a really nice player. 6'7", can shoot on the move, shoot over guys. Him and Steele Venters together is a really interesting shooting combo. And then obviously, you have your athletic pieces on the perimeter as well with Jalen Worley and Adam Miller and Braden Smith, obviously managing point guard duties. I don't know about this team's depth without Tyon Grant Foster. That's more of my concern than is depth than actually losing like a stud. But I still think that this team's going to be solid. I have them ranked like 24th in the preseason. It's inevitable by KenPom and other analytical measures that's going to be low.
Yeah, and I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, but there's a lot of NBA people who really like Saint-Superi. Yeah. And I think that there's a non-zero chance that he's like one of this team's like 2 or 3 best players.
Yeah.
We need to have Jonathan call the Georgia Bulldogs because they might actually tell Jonathan that Gonzaga was worthy of that number 8 ranking, the way they dismantled them in the first round. And then also taking Houston.
Here's the thing. It was Mike White in an NCAA tournament game.
But they followed it up with taking Houston nearly to the wire.
Oh, that was
yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's what's fascinating about how Ken Pom can get some of those things right. Like, obviously, you watch Gonzaga struggle with Santa Clara or lose to Oregon State. You're like, there's no way this team's top 10. But then they go out there on the national stage, and they're right there with those guys.
Yeah. But I think a lot of that is Mark Few, one of the best coaches in the country.
Gets them ready for March. Yep.
Yeah. I thought that throughout the year, Gonzaga kind of didn't look great. A lot of times they didn't. The blowing that game against Kentucky, blowing that game against UCLA, Oregon State loss, losing to Santa Clara at home. But they'll always turn it on. They'll always figure it out in some way. And it took them being an 8 seed and as the number 8 team in Ken Pom for them to not make the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2014, is it?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think it was the first time since 2014 that they didn't make the Sweet 16. And they would have made it in 2020
kind of looked at them.
I
think everyone kind of looked at them or UConn as the toughest draw for 1 seeds in the second round last year, and that just kind of shows you what Gonzaga is as a program right now. That like they can have a year where they lose 9 games, they lose 4 games in conference, and they still come out and push a really elite Houston team to the limit.
Yeah, and they were dynamite in the WCC tournament too. The 2 games, they were just on fire.
Last year was the most games Mark Few has ever lost in WCC play.
Yes.
He had never lost 4 games. It's not like it's tied. It was the only time he has ever lost 4 games. What? Like how?
That actually. Well, because Washington State and Oregon State joined the league, made the league better. Otherwise, it was just,
Yeah, there was a lot of 16-game seasons.
And you have to remember, San Francisco and Santa Clara just recently, in the last 6-7 years, have come on strong. Those used to be similar level programs as Pepperdine, LMU, and the rest. So Gonzaga was steamrolling everybody except for St. Mary's and BYU for a bunch of those years.
Yeah.
BYU had a little bit of a stretch there, like in the peak Gonzaga years where they were down and like got good like as they were leaving the league.
Yep, absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about St. Mary's. Kind of moving down. This is a blind trust program. If Randy Bennett likes a player, I like a player. If Randy Bennett thinks that a set is going to work, I think the set's going to work. Jonathan, what was the guy with the bandage in his eye on the 247 picture?
Oh man, they have a kid coming in next year. I forget his name, but he has a bandage on his eye in his 24/7 profile picture. And just immediately, without watching a second of film on the kid, I knew I liked him.
Yeah, I don't know like exactly what it's going to look like with Duckett and Lewis in the backcourt. That Dylan Shaw is a guy that I think is going to have a really nice freshman year. Uzenis, another interesting freshman. Morauskas kind of has to really take a step forward consistency-wise. McKeever and Wessels. Just even more size in the front court. Neither of them is Mitchell Saxon, but I don't think you need to be Mitchell Saxon to be a tournament team.
Wessels actually didn't start the exhibition over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean McKeever's good. McKeever can be really good. I watched him against Merrimack, and he was just like, obviously he was like 7 inches taller than anyone on Merrimack.
Yeah. I think this is probably the most uncertainty surrounding St. Mary's roster in quite some time, going back to like maybe around COVID, if you consider that quite some time. But I think the talent's there for them to be good. Mikey Lewis, I think, will be one of the best players in this league, and Morauskas should be right up there with him. I'm expecting a big freshman year from Dylan Shaw. I think he's really good, ready to contribute right away. And if Randy Bennett trusts him enough to like bring him in, like sign me up, like you said, Sam.
It's very unusual to see any Randy Bennett team trust a true freshman, and Dylan Shaw is the highest rated recruit in program history. So this will be a litmus test to see if he's a good enough recruit to satisfy the role. But otherwise, I do think there's some secondary options behind him. Obviously, Montas is the same size, plays a similar role in terms of positional. And then there's a bunch of redshirt freshmen too, where I have a lot of trust in guys like Liam Campbell, Rory Hawk, even Oliver Faber, the three guys who redshirted last year, because it takes a while to learn Randy's system. And Randy's one of those coaches where he's not going to just get a bunch of players and build a system based on their strengths, which is what all the modern coaches seem to do now, which I totally support and enjoy watching. But Randy's a hard-nosed, old-school. You got to fit the way Randy wants to play and the way he prepares. And if you can't fit that role, you're not going to play. And that will be fascinating to see play out in the non-conference. But I do think overall St. Mary's has done a master class in scheduling. They have 8 really, really good mid-majors coming in for home games. And that model seems to pay off every year. They can go 6-2. They can go 7-1. They'll mix in some 20-point blowouts against really good teams like they did in the past with Chattanooga and Akron and a long list.
A couple of years ago when the entire team had COVID.
North Texas this year coming up as well. So,
hopefully they're healthy this time.
The bottom line is when you can beat some of those types of teams that finish around 100 to 150, where most of the high majors don't even schedule those teams. And you can beat them handily, like by 20, which they will, a few of them each year.
You can really move up.
You could really move up, and that's how you keep seeing St. Mary's net in the top 20, 1 year all the way up to 8th. And I think that is going to keep them a safe tournament team. Now, I seeded them around 7, I think, for the preseason forecast. But, I really expect that to continue. And by league play, they'll have this thing dialed in.
I want to talk about San Francisco. Kind of a little lower on this team than I have been in the past few years. I think Tyrone Riley is awesome. Going to be a candidate for Player of the Year. If Player of the Year was only given out for non-Gonzaga and St. Mary's players, he would probably be the favorite. Had an awesome freshman year. There were some moments where he looked like he was dominant. Didn't average a ton of points because they had Malik Thomas and Marcus Williams scoring a ton in the backcourt. Now it's Tyrone Riley's team. They got Chips Newberry back. As long as he's healthy, that's a really impactful player.
A couple of months.
Yeah. But kind of the transfers, I'm kind of iffy on Mookie Cook. Never really liked him in high school. Guillermo Diaz-Graham, maybe this is a good level for him. I just don't think he's very good. Maybe he is. I think Wang is an interesting piece. Would like to see a step up from him. Fuchs isn't bad. Masic, he's been in the league. He's okay. But yeah, for Beasley and Riley are kind of the pieces that I think are going to take this team far if they're going to go far.
Yeah, I'll say Ryan Beasley's an absolute stud, and he gets the role to himself this year. Won't have to share it with Williams or others like he has before, and he'll do great in that role. Riley's a guy. It was really interesting. I went to practice a couple of weeks ago and sat by a scout from the Oklahoma City Thunder who talked ad nauseum about how they love Tyrone Riley because he does everything a basketball player should do in terms of loose balls, defense, movement without the ball. He's never going to lead he might lead the team in scoring. I don't think he will. He's not going to ever impress with his scoring numbers, but he's going to do everything to stuff the stat sheet over a steal a game as a freshman. And they're really starting to look at those advanced analytics in the NBA level now. They're not just wowed by your 25 points and 10 rebounds a game. It's all the other things you do. And that's why Tyrone's got a chance to be in the first round after this year. And I think the other pieces will be interesting. Like Diaz-Graham, I think, from the practice I saw, looked pretty good. Did all the things that the coaches are asking him to do from position. I think the two guys that need to be talked about more are Van Abosi, who got some really quality minutes in emergency situations last year, made the right play in all those situations. Now, obviously, his shooting isn't elite or anything. That needs to take a step forward, but he's a great decision maker and a very good on-ball defender. And then Legend Smiley from my hometown of Seattle, Roydell. Yeah, Roydell, not to age myself, but I played against his dad growing up. Roydell, the USC legend. And so excited about him. And he's for sure in the rotation. Gurlison's told me that personally. You can see a major breakout from him. And so I just think they have a lot of quality pieces. We'll see if Masic can step up his defense. He can clearly score. He'll be a threat from deep as he was at Portland. And with Fuchs, I think his body's ridiculous, like so impressive. And it's more about getting him wired correctly in unison with the team. Seems like the kind of guy that is ready to just explode at any moment mentally. So they're just trying to rein him in and set him off at the right times during the season. So this will be a very entertaining squad.
Jonathan?
Yeah. I think it's hard to hate this team with the backcourt that they have. And I lean towards the side that I like them. And they're the third best team in this league in my eyes. Beasley and Riley are just so good. And when you have Vuk and Legend Smiley behind them, like just makes for a great backcourt. Mookie Cook, like we'll see. Sam, I know you weren't like super high on him as a recruit.
That's a generous way of putting it.
Yeah, I wasn't either. Newberry Bath is obviously good. I think
good actor.
I think somebody made the joke that Cooper Flagg dunked so hard on Guillermo Diaz-Graham that he went all the way across the country to get away. But yeah, like I think the front court's where you have your questions here. Front court and wings. Other than that, like Burleson's great coach. I think they're pretty squarely to be the third best team in this league.
Yeah, and I think most agree that Santa Clara is fourth. Elijah Mahi, another one of those candidates for Player of the Year if St. Mary's and Gonzaga didn't exist. Had a really solid season last season coming over from JUCO. That role is going to step up. And then the name to watch is Thierry Darlon, who played in the G League the last couple of years and is now coming over to Santa Clara. Rocco, what can you tell us about him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning on the fly as well. I don't spend a lot of time scouting the G League like I should have been, right?
We're gonna have to do that now.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
Right.
It's
Johnson is the guy, right? Going to Louisville.
Right. Yeah. No.
Louisville.
Louisville, and then there's another guy that's down to 3 schools. I just saw on Twitter. Right before we started. So it's the trend. Like as soon as this came out, I think all the staffs
and Tom Izzo's complaining about it already.
Oh yeah, that came out yesterday. So it's a wild time. But Darlin himself is a developing, somewhat still raw player. Perfect kind of for the G League development side. Played for the Delaware team last year, and I think he had a game at the end of March where he put up 28. And that most of the nights he was somewhere between 5 and 10. His average ended up being 11, I think, from that big scoring night. But that's pretty crazy that you just picked up a guy at the Santa Clara level that, merely 7 months ago had 28 points in a G League game against other guys that later got called up to the league or maybe are on the roster today. So it's a big weapon, a big piece. He's 6'8". He can play the 3, can play the 4, probably even play the 5. Obviously with Maji, Maji's kind of the guy that they're building the team around, and he's got some elite skill. So you might have 2 NBA players on the roster. We'll see how that plays out. I think all the other pieces around him are solid. Santa Clara is continuing to build and spend money at an amazing rate that I could never have foreseen 10 years ago. And they're right on the same tier as San Francisco as far as I'm concerned. I think there's enough open questions and some things you can bank on for both that I kind of have them even starting the year. Although I do like San Francisco's schedule with up to 7 Power Fives, just a little bit better, which is surprising because Santa Clara usually outschedules everybody in this league.
Jonathan, anything on Santa Clara?
Yeah, just a couple more things. One, Chris Taggio coming over from Iowa is really interesting here because that's a type of player out of the NBA Africa Academy, I think originally, that like would work with Sendek. Like that's a guy that he does a really good job developing. That's the type of player that has popped in this system with this coaching staff. And then they have a freshman I like. I'm not sure if Bradley Longcore is going to play right away. I'd actually pretty much doubt if that he's going to play just because of who they have in the backcourt and the fact that they brought in Garland. But I think like physically he's probably not ready. But this is a guy who I think if he sticks around at Santa Clara will be like a very good point combo guard for them in a couple years.
Yeah, let's move on. Talk about the rest of this league. Kind of rapid fire some stuff because I think there's a clear top four and then probably a little bit of a drop. Seattle and Oregon State and Washington State, probably the next tier. If anyone wants to kind of talk about any of those teams.
Yeah, I'm here in Washington State. Some of the guys that came over from Europe are actually starting to show out in the exhibition. I know they play New Mexico this weekend, so I'm kind of holding my breath until I can get some more information on the minute distribution, see if they take that matchup seriously. Could be a really interesting matchup. Seattle University, and I'll turn it over to Jonathan for the others. I'm excited about, like, I don't know. They're definitely invested, and it's super exciting for the school who came back to Division I in 2008, spent the majority of the last 17 years in the WAC, of course, and they have not been able to break through the NCAAs, but they did have a major breakthrough last year by finally beating Washington, the other school in Seattle, for the first time in 16 tries since rejoining D1. And
glad that that's a game that's being played like every year. By the way,
every year, yeah, and thank God for the geography too, because the whole state only has 5 D1 schools, and they're the only two.
Shout out Danny Sprinkle for scheduling them again this year after losing.
Well, they keep signing like 4 to 6 year deals, so that's helpful as well. So that might not be credit to him, but
that's at the arena in Seattle.
They end up playing every other year now. One in the Kraken Arena, which of course Climate Pledge, and then of course the other year is at Washington.
One of these years they gotta go to SU.
No, they won't. There's too many tickets. There's too many tickets to sell.
They won't. But they gotta do it.
And that's a good thing to touch on, because how exciting for 1 year Seattle University gets to host, and it'll be in the big arena, but they'll get to host Washington State and Washington and Gonzaga all of this season. So for Red Hawk fans, it's probably never going to get better than this for a home slate. So enjoy it. I'm a big Malik Arrington fan. I like Braden Maldonado, and the transfer from Gonzaga, Jun Seok-Yu, he's always had these like big Gonzaga scrimmage hype. You know, if you follow any of the Gonzaga message boards, they love this guy. Never really got to crack the rotation too much, but maybe he could be a real player for Seattle. So a lot of other guys on the roster that we could go on and on about, but to keep it quick, just an all-around exciting year for Seattle, and they have a real chance, if it all goes right, to finish as high as 5th.
Yeah, and I want to talk about Oregon State. I actually like this roster. Des White, solid player in the Valley. Josiah Lake and Isaiah C. were two guys that were key contributors on a really good Oregon State team last year. Stephen Olawoni has some good size and athleticism. There's a lot of size on this team with him. Noah Ammenhauser's 7'2". Yak is 6'11". Johan Munch is 6'11". Jorge Diaz-Graham. I know I'm not big on either of the Diaz-Grahams, but a lot of size. I think Oregon State could sneak into the top 100. And Malcolm Christie, another guy. Really, really good outside shooter from Oakland. Didn't shoot it very well last year, but was kind of the Golke, where he was just kind of the designated you shoot 10 threes a game guy.
He's from New Brunswick. He's from New Brunswick, Sam. We almost put Oakland up there for him. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely looking at Oregon State as kind of a team that could sneak in and create some chaos. What about the bottom tier, or the bottom 5 teams in this league: Loyola, Pacific, San Diego, Pepperdine, and Portland. Do any of these teams stand out to anyone?
I would say LMU is invested with the higher group. In fact, LMU probably
They probably
outspent.
are. Tanner
think
Thomas is good. Myron Amy's good. Jan Vide is good. Josic is good.
They spent some real dollars at LMU, so we just got to see if
Stan Johnson. Let's put them in the tier above. It's a little disrespectful, I'll say.
Yeah,
just because maybe they haven't proven anything.
I think the talent on that
roster, I have trust issues.
The talent on that roster is just way higher than some of these other teams at the bottom of the league.
No doubt.
Right. But I'll point out Pacific as a team. I think they have somewhere around 7 Canadians now. And, of course, we know why, Dave Smart. But they just totally hit the reset button again around Elias Rolfe, who I think there was a lot of guys on that team last year that Dave Smart just could not get just the kind of kids he had. He could not get them to buy into his system. And obviously with the way he plays and as meticulous as he studies, if you don't have the right kind of players, it's not going to work. So they went out and they actually put some budget money. This roster, I won't mention the number, but it's 4 times the amount that last year's roster cost.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So, with Rochelin from UC San Diego, Marmoleos had a decent year in the Southland at Lamar. There's some nice pieces here. I'll be interested to see if you can get it rolling. But I do think they're still kind of a cut below that middle tier. But they're the team to keep an eye on just because Dave Smart's such a unique coach, and they are trying to build this thing.
Jonathan, anything on the bottom of the league?
No, I just want to mention that I think this is going to be this could end up being a tough year for Wayne Tinkle. They lost their 5 top guys by usage rate last year, and I know that they surprised some people, and I do like Des White. He was like the only guy last year at Missouri State that I did like. But I think it could be a struggle at the start, and then maybe they kick it into gear by conference play.
Okay, we can disagree. I like that roster. It's not as good as last year, but I think it's good. Don't really have any thoughts on San Diego. Actually, I do have thoughts.
Tyler Johnson
on San Diego. It's that I'm not fooled by any of this. Like, this is not going to work. They're going to be bad. I'm not fooled by Lindy's Sports calling Brandon Benjamin.
You remember the first year? You remember the first year when Sam, you remember the first year of the Lavin era where they brought in like Jaden Dallaire and like the team was like clearly talented, but it was like they hired Steve Lavin.
Yeah. I'm like Brandon Benjamin, the number 67 player in the Lindy's Sports Top 100. I'm not falling for the propaganda. Steve Lavin.
Let's see where Torvik has him on the projected points per game chart.
I do think Tyler Johnson's talented.
Brandon Benjamin. Oh, he's not even on here. Nice.
Yeah. Don't really like this Pepperdine roster at all.
Do got to give Pepperdine a shout out for one of the most incredible runs I've ever seen, getting to the WCC semifinals last year.
Yeah,
that was unbelievable.
Yeah, what was it? 3 wins in a row.
Yeah, and they beat Santa Clara and Oregon State back-to-back nights after beating, I believe, Pacific in the first game, or maybe it was Portland. Yeah, Portland.
Yeah, I just don't have interest in a team starting Yasim Garam at point guard in 2025. It's kind of like weird exit from Yale last year where it's like, I want more minutes. You're not good enough to play more minutes. Okay, I'll go.
I believe they are opening their new facility this year as well. So that's another exciting.
I'm sure it's gorgeous. I mean, what isn't gorgeous there?
I might have to make an excuse just to go and maybe see the Dons down there or something.
Portland would not have guessed Riley Parker was going to end up there, but there he is.
There he is. March Madness experience.
Yeah, they love the kids from the Western Pennsylvania schools. They got Karunski as well.
That's right.
From Duquesne.
I like James O'Donnell too. I mean, obviously didn't get he didn't play a ton his freshman year for the Dons, but he works hard and cares a lot. That's the kind of guy, character-wise, Portland needs. I think every year of Legans being the head coach, they finished dead last in the conference in defense, and so I would at least like to see them finish 11th. That's my ask from the Pirates.
All right, we've got some. Let's move on and talk Big West now, Jonathan. The Big West had, I want to say, the best year I can ever remember it having last year. We were having two Big West discussions. UC San Diego was top 40 in Ken Pom. UC Irvine won 32 games and almost won the NIT. They were 1 point away. CSUN was awesome. They won 14 league games. They were really good. UC Riverside had a strong year, won 14 league games. The bottom of the league was not good, but Cal Poly had its first legit season in a long time. Shout out Mike DeGeorge. Hawaii is actually the top team in Ken Pom in the preseason for the Big West. We in or out on the Rainbow Warriors?
You could start, Rocco.
I guess in-ish. In my preseason top 60 for the one bid leagues, Hawaii comes in, I think, 19th right now. And I think based on the fact that they didn't even make the conference tournament last year, which was the first time ever, that's a pretty big statement. Now, the big news, of course, getting Nemishka back with the waiver late in the summer, moved the needle. He'll be preseason first team All Big West. But also just, bringing in Bullock, a grad level player, fifth-year player.
Really good player.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big needle mover. He's got a chance, played a lot at South Dakota, very skilled offensively, and gets into the passing lanes, almost at a steal and a half for the Coyotes. Hunter Erickson was a player at Utah that got to play considerably, I guess, like as a reserve player. That's kind of big at this Big West level. Toomey from Seton Hall is there. So they just have a ton of old dudes, man. They've got, I'm counting them up right now, 9 players that are either seniors or fifth-year players. And usually –
Sorry, go ahead, finish.
Well, and then the size, too. Like, really nobody short – there's 2 6'3" guys with Erickson and Hunk and Clater who are projected starters. But I think everybody is either bigger than that or, like, a lot of, like, 6'7" to 7 foot heights. They're going to be a pain to play against for a lot of smaller Big West teams.
Yeah, I agree with that part.
Multiple former Evansville Purple Aces, so definitively in, Sam.
But for me and Jonathan, at least, the clear top team in this league is UC Irvine.
Yeah.
Bring back Darren Saran, who was not great, didn't really get to play much at Stanford, but was terrific at Irvine a couple of years ago. Andre Henry's back from injury. Jurian Dixon, I think, is going to take a big step up. Kyle Evans is back. Harrison Carrington comes in from Colorado. I think you look at that 5, and that's a really, really strong 5 for this conference. Has a chance to be a top 100 team once again. And like that's kind of the thing with UC Irvine. You look at whoever they kind of come up with every year. It doesn't really matter who they have. They're gonna be good. They finished. They haven't had a losing record in conference play. They haven't even been close to 500 in conference play since 2012. They finished in the top 100 2 years in a row, 104, 133, 107, 106, 73, 147, 139, 84, 91, 90 before that. So it's not like they were ever really far away from the top 100. They've won 20 games 3 years in a row, including 30 last year. Always a strong defensive team. I think they have the chance to score a bunch this year. They kind of struggled early without Andre Henry last year, and I think that having him back is going to be huge. Do you think UC San Diego did a fine job in the portal, kind of picking up the pieces from losing all their guys from last year? Definitely going to be tough, but I think they'll be competitive in this league. Clinton Allard was the right hire. I think Tyson Dunn and Alex Chaikin is going to be a good offensive group. UC Santa Barbara is probably the most talented team in the league. If you still have your Miro Little stock, I think I sold almost all of it. Still holding on to a little bit of hope for him. Aiden Mahaney, this is a level where he can be a Player of the Year contender. Hassana Katenge, if he's fully healthy, will be a really good player for them. Just kind of comes down to, well, they've had the talent in the past couple of years. It hasn't really worked out. Will it kind of click this year in a league that maybe doesn't have as much in terms of UC Irvine doesn't return 6 guys. UC San Diego doesn't have an Aniwa Tate Jones and Tyler McGuy duo. We'll kind of have to see if they can kind of fill a vacuum or if there won't be a vacuum. I think Jonathan's frozen.
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I went in and out for a sec. My Wi-Fi's acting weird. But, yeah, I think bringing back Saran is huge for Irvine. He's going to be one of the best players in the league. I know what they lost, but, like, Andre Henry coming back is important. I do think Jurian Dixon takes that lead. I trust Russell Turner a lot with the development that they do with their players. So I think they're pretty definitively number one. Although, like, you know, when Hawaii has a roster like that and you have to go travel out to the islands for games, it's tough.
All right. Just kind of want to quickly talk little Cal Poly. Love this team.
George.
Mike DeGeorge. Peter Bondel had a big year. Hamad Musa comes in. I think he can be good in this league. And then Jess SOS is kind of like the big swing piece coming in. I think Cal Poly has a chance to be top half for the first time in a very long time. Rocco, any kind of last thoughts on the Big West before we go quickly on the WAC and Big Sky?
Yeah, I just think Irvine's the proven commodity. There's enough back, and Jurian Dixon can fill it up. That's certainly the pick I have as well. Santa Barbara, talent-wise, I think they're 6th in my rankings, so not far behind. But will they be able to defend consistently is the major question there. And then I would also just say the job that Andy Newman's done at Cal State Northridge. Now, he's going to have to replace a lot, but he brings in Larry Hughes Jr., Josh O'Garo, Josiah Davis, who I don't know if I'm fully sold on coming from Niagara, but there's enough there behind. And Mahmoud came back. Fofana played a ton last year. Really good teammate. I just love the work that Andy Newman's doing there. I cannot see this program taking a step back, and I think they'll surprise some people and figure out a way to get into that top 5 or 6 at least.
Way more former MAC guys in this league than you would think. You've got Ron Jessamy at Bakersfield, Josiah Davis at Northridge.
It makes sense, though, if you think about the academic part.
Yeah, Dre Bullock, Shaq Bender, who I do not like this Long Beach team.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation.
Sam, you saw Northridge play last year, right?
Yeah, they're fun.
They play hard, very hard.
Really fun. All right, Big Sky. Just quickly, who is your pick to win the league, and anyone we should watch out for?
Well, you know, it's the one pick I had to change this week. Well, actually today, because Northern Arizona got picked last by both the media and the coaches. This freaked me out because I had a chance to meet with Shane Burkhardt multiple times this summer. He's a guy that keeps, finishing in the middle every once in a while, of course, a little further back in the standings. And of course, has to replace just the beasts in Trent McLaughlin and Carson Tout, Jaden Jackson. But I do like I know Marcus Pohm, Carl Marcus Pohm from San Francisco. Some of the guys he brings back, like Oakland Fort is back, real good leader, senior. I have a weird feeling that Northern Arizona is going to shock a lot of people. I don't know if they're going to be like a 6 seed in the Big Sky tournament that wins it, or I'm just going to look like a total fool. This is the hardest league to predict in the country. But I do think the other team to call out is the Idaho Vandals, who Torvik was in love with throughout the summer during scheduling for a long time. I think it flipped here in the last few weeks. But for a long time, for the last 5 or 6 months, mostly the Vandals have been the highest-ranked Torvik team. and they're not getting much love in the media or coaches poll either. But I'm a big Colton Mitchell fan. I think Tyler Lionheart's got a ton of potential. The kid they brought in from Sela, Robery, he's kind of a force, can really translate to the Big Sky. A lot of continuity, and that's why the Torvik model loved this team. And I also think just with Alex Pribble and all the respect I had for him at Seattle University, it makes a lot of sense. Like Idaho's more invested than ever. They built that beautiful new arena. This will be the third year there. So I did flip my pick to Idaho. So those are my two I'm looking at, Idaho and Northern Arizona.
I would definitely watch out for Mitchell. Jackson Rasmussen, I've heard good things as a freshman. But yeah, I think it's tough to pick against Montana. Travis Secure does a great job. Money Williams still there. I think that's going to be a good team. Definitely fascinated by Idaho State.
Yeah, the big guy, the D2 Minot State guy.
Yeah,
man, I watched his film today. If you can believe that.
Yeah, just a lot of kind of players I'm interested by in this league. A lot of guards I like. Isaiah Moses at Eastern Washington, Etchison, Money Williams, Mitchell, Fort.
It's wide open, man. And maybe this is the year where
Sam, you hit on the one point that I was gonna make. Like obviously, I don't have too many Big Sky thoughts. Like that's not my neck of the woods. It's not the league I follow. But I think the point guards in this league are super intriguing.
Yeah, they're all good.
And guys, the last thing I'll say on the Big Sky is Steve Smiley's just done an amazing job identifying talent. Obviously, the famous ones with St. Thomas and Dalton Connect, but
Langston Reynolds.
They were 15-3 last year and just fell apart in the Big Sky tournament. Maybe this is the year where Northern Colorado finishes like 4th or 5th, but then gets the big, because Smiley definitely deserves a crack at March Madness.
Yeah. Quickly on the WAC, it's only 7 teams this year. Right. Who's your pick to win it, Rocco?
Well, I do think Utah Valley is a tier above the rest of the teams. Just a good amount coming back. I'm also really, really sold on Todd Phillips. Really impressed with the season they had last year. Obviously, they lose Nelson, the big stud. But I think with Leonhardt back, he's an all-league level guy, especially with only 7 teams to choose from. Taylor Hendricks' son, the lottery pick from the NBA, and his twin brother.
Yeah,
I mean,
son would be a little crazy.
I'm on like hour 4 of shows right now. Please forgive me. Get tongue twister. Twin brother, and I went to UCF practice when they were true freshmen, and so I remember seeing this kid. Clearly not a Big 12 or at the time American Conference level player, but now he's 4th year, can be a real good player. I think at the WAC level. Jackson Holcomb also there, and I mean, with Phillips's coaching and all that, I think they're the team to beat, no doubt. But the models really love Abilene Christian's continuity, and I'll have them on the call at the Jacksonville Classic this year. So I am excited to see what ACU brings behind Braden Hubbard and Rich Smith and the guys.
Yeah, and I don't think you can count out Cal Baptist. Rip Croy has done a great job there. Dom Daniels is the best player in this league coming back. So I think that's something to watch out for. Tarleton has a lot of pieces.
Player for sure.
Tarleton has a lot of pieces that are interesting. I don't know if I think they fit at all. Arlington, another team that has a lot of pieces. Not sure how well I think they fit. Jonathan, anything to add on the WAC?
Not a ton. Very interested by Cash Chavis in this league at Arlington. He was a guy that I thought had a tremendous amount of talent in high school. Went to Arkansas, didn't really play there. From Minnesota, just coming down to Arlington to play for them. And then I'm with Rocco. Todd Phillips is fantastic. I think he's a candidate to move up this year. This is another good team that he has. We mentioned earlier that he beat out Grand Canyon for the league title last year. Obviously lost to him in the WAC tournament there, but this is another great roster, and with GCU out of the league, I think they should be the favorites.
All right, Rocco. I think this is perfect timing. Go board that flight. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll definitely get you on during the season. You're one of the top guests on every college basketball podcast, and it's for good reason. Thank you so much.
It's always fun to be on with you guys. And last thought is, farewell to the WAC as we know it. It'll be the last season. But I do think all the people that work at the league office will be running the new United Conference. So more to talk about with that as we get into next season. But thanks again for having me. Tarleton also opening a brand new, crazy expensive arena. That school's on the rise. That actually might be the best job in the new United Conference.
They're probably going to be FBS in a few years.
I think so.
They're also really good at football too. They're 7-0.
They spent a lot of money in the portal for FCS level. So you can see that coming to basketball potentially in the near future. So,
Jonathan, you want to take us home?
Let's do it. If you came to hear about Tyler Self and where he's working, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about Miles Che Ora farming, you came to the right place. And if you came to hear about the latest happenings with Caleb Grill, you came to the right place. This has been Season 6, Episode 44 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers, our West Coast mid-major preview. Thanks so much to Rocco. Thanks so much to Tom for joining us tonight. And we'll see you next time.